accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, February 20th. Would you all please rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Here.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Here.
Ms. Paul Egel?
Here.
Mayor Gurke?
Here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second. She got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Levy, do you have a proclamation to
Do we have
present?
somebody here to accept the proclamation?
I am Julie London's here. Excuse me.
How are you?
How are you?
We have a proclamation which we are pleased to present to you. Whereas over 1.7 million people in the United States sustain a traumatic brain injury each year, and whereas brain injury is the leading cause of death and disability in this country, devastating families emotionally, financially, and otherwise. And whereas the most common causes of brain injury are motor vehicle collisions, simple falls, and blunt force trauma. Whereas the only cure for brain injury is prevention through public awareness and education. The Opportunity Project is helping to promote the education of our residents through the display and dissemination of photos, brain injury resources, and program information. Now, therefore, be it resolved this proclamation, the Township of Millburn, its committee, on behalf of its residents and Millburn Township Committee itself, does hereby proclaim the month of March 2018 as Brain Injury Awareness Month in the Township of Millburn, and encourage all citizens to support and learn more about the effects of brain injury. Thank you for your good efforts.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. So I'm Julie London again, and I'm with Opportunity Project. We're an organization right in town, down the road from the shop, right? If you keep going straight down, you run into our building. It's like a big glass and green building. And we serve people with brain injury, adults with brain injury. And during the month of March, as Committee Man was saying, and actually a little bit into April, we host different programs to help support our cause and also to kind of help, kind of educate a little more the community about what it is to live with brain injury. So we invite all you, we'll hopefully have some postings at the library, throughout the town, watch the town site in your email. We'd love for you to join us if you can. We have one big event at our clubhouse on March 27th, excuse me. It's a wellness day, and the whole community is invited. And then we have another big event actually it's going to be at the fire department on April 27th. It's a Friday. So we'd love to have you if you can come support our cause, learn a bit more about what we do. And just a big thank you to the Township of Millburn for all your support. You've been wonderful throughout the years, and we really appreciate the proclamation and all your support. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
All right. Our next item of business is the presentation for the proposed 2018 municipal budget. And I will refer to Jason Gadloff, our CFO, and are you involved in this presentation?
So I'll just introduce it, is that this is something that we new this year, different from past years, that we're just going to do a brief introduction to the budget before the actual formal introduction by resolution at our March 6th meeting.
Good evening, Mayor, Township Committee. Thank you. As Alex said, this is just kind of a brief overview of where we're at. We'll be prepared for a full introduction at our March 6th meeting. So with that, jump right in. So we're looking right now at a 0% increase in the amount we raise by taxes. The drivers, similar to most years, all center around the insurance, health, workers' compensation, general liability insurance. those are probably some of the bigger pieces of it. We wanted to take more of a view at the capital improvements this year, and give you all a general idea of what the departments have requested and what we've been talking about. Micro paving of various township roads. We go through this every year based on the engineering department and public works looking at what roads are most in need. There's some sewer pump station improvements, Mohawk and Slayton, that need to be done, some upgrades with that. Police and fire, we're looking at radio upgrades, which will help them with their communication in different areas of town. And then the milling and paving of Willow and Bleecker. There's some other smaller stuff, but those are the bigger items for this year that we are looking at requesting. So generally overall, appropriations, we're looking at a 7% overall increase. Most of our items are inside the cap, inside our appropriations cap, which is a 2% cap. We're well within that. It's 76% of the overall budget is within the appropriations cap. The things that are outside are things like debt service, capital improvement fund, a portion of health benefit and pension costs. But for the most part, everything else is inside the budget, or inside the cap. Our general revenues are made up of really a few major categories. We have general revenues, which we'll have a breakdown in a few minutes of how that breaks down. Our surplus anticipated makes up 8% of our revenues. That's generated from prior year revenues. So we're using about $150,000 more in the 2018 budget than the 2017 budget. That's helping us keep the tax rate and the amount to be raised by taxes level. The amount to be raised by taxes is our biggest portion. It's the biggest revenue, makes up 73% of the revenues in the budget. Overall, the tax rate will remain the same at 0.431. Again, the amount to be raised by taxes is at $42,200,000, which is a 0% increase from last year. I'm going to start bottom to top on this slide with really the breakdown of the big categories of the budget. We have our non-discretionary items, which are the things in the budget that we don't have a lot of control over. Things such as our insurance, pension, those items that are the big drivers, we don't have a lot of control over that. It also includes personnel costs and contractual items that once contracts are settled, you don't have much control because they're mandatory within the contracts. Our discretionary items, we have about $6.5 million, which makes up 11% of the budget. That comes from most of the department requests and what the department operating budgets look like. And then the remaining items are kind of a hybrid. Certain pieces are discretionary, certain are non-discretionary. It makes up 7.3% of the budget, and that includes our capital improvement fund and our reserve for uncollected taxes, which is a mandatory item that funds the difference between the collection rate and what we have to pay the school and the county taxes. So there's not really discretion on that, so that's kind of a hybrid category. So the revenue breakdown, three main categories. We have our local revenues, which this year, this is where our fees and permits, other licenses, road opening permits, interest on investments, construction permits, court fines, all those items fall into here. This actually is up 5.4% over last year, which is also helping us maintain the tax rate at a level. State aid and grants. So this is made up of the state aid that we get from the state of New Jersey, plus other grants, things like municipal alliance, body armor grants, things of that nature. Various different sizes. Clean Communities is included in that. And then the other is a variety of different revenues. The revenue that we receive from the joint meeting, which is the sewer bills. We have a hotel use and occupancy fee, cable franchise fees from both Verizon and Comcast. And then our receipts from delinquent taxes, which is the amount of money that we anticipate collecting on the delinquencies from the prior year, and then various other trust funds in which we're able to bring in revenue to help offset the tax base. So try and break this down into an idea so everybody has a better picture of where the money in the town is actually going. So for every dollar essentially spent, 13 cents of that dollar would be for general government, 27 cents is police and fire, that's our public safety. Municipal services, which is 24 cents on the dollar, that includes recreation and public works. And then our capital and debt service that's in the budget is approximately 8 cents for every dollar. And then our statutory items, things like Social Security, health insurance, workers' compensation insurance, and those items. Periodically, we always like to go back and have a good measure of what we're looking at comparable to our neighbors. Debt service is always one of those things that we watch. We don't want our debt to be a driver of the tax rate. So overall, when you look at this in terms of what the rating agencies look at, so that when you go out for a bond rating, they look at a favorable debt to budget ratio that you should be no more than 10% of your budget. So our debt within the budget is 3.27%. So you can kind of get an idea of where we stand with some of our neighbors. This is just a breakdown of where we're currently looking at. They said we are at a 0% increase. The school and the county, this is an estimate. It's a little early in the process for the school. They're still kind of working through some of their year-end because their fiscal year. So usually beginning of March, we'll have a better handle from them on what the school's looking at. The county, again, this is also an estimate for them. Their calendar is similar to ours, so they're kind of working through their budget and what the impacts to all the towns in the county would be. So we're estimating both at 2%. And then the library, this is a mandatory increase. Every free public library has a budget from the municipality, which is based on 1/3 per $1 million of their assessed valuation, and that's mandatory. So as assessments rise, the library contribution also automatically goes up. So that's 6.6%.
It also decreases.
Yes, thank you, Alex. When we see a decrease in our assessed valuations, the library then would see a corresponding decrease in funding for the township. Overall, this is the breakdown of the property taxes, the school being the biggest share, and then the county, and we make up about 23% of the overall property taxes, and the library is the smallest piece. So, what's next is we would look to introduce by resolution at the March 6th meeting, and then we would look to adopt the budget on April 17th. Anybody has any questions from the committee?
When you refer to tax rate, what do you mean?
So the tax rate is the amount to be raised by taxes divided by the assessed valuation. So it's the dollars associated with each individual property that you pay per your assessment. So it's at $100 of assessed valuation. Any other questions?
Just one more.
Sure.
Why, you said our local revenues are up 5%.
Mhm.
Can you explain if you wonder, is there a reason for that?
There is a couple things. One of them is, probably the bigger part of it this year is interest rates towards the end of the year started to creep up, probably the last quarter. So we did see a bump there. We're kind of watching to see what's going to happen over the next few months with that. Our road opening permits are definitely a driver in there, and that's one of those that you have to keep an eye on, but there's been I'm sure as everybody sees, the utility companies in their neighborhoods, every time they come and want to do a project and open the road, we do charge a permit fee so that we're able to repave the section and get the roads back to repair.
It should be noted that up until a few years ago, we actually didn't charge utilities. We change that ordinance so that when they do come in and do this work, that we are able to capture a fee.
So those are probably the two bigger drivers.
Like, for instance, I'm sorry, they repaved all of Millburn Avenue after they did all that work, which was
Well, yeah, and
a
that was,
benefit to the town.
yeah, and that was through the county and the county, and the work that American Water did on Millburn Avenue. But certainly with what's happening on Glen, there's a road opening fee permit for that, and subsequently requirements through our permit process in which they have to restore the road up to a certain standard.
At the end of the year, there was a race to the clerk's office to prepay taxes.
Yes.
Are we realizing any kind of interest on that? Well,
Yes, we have invested in, we're limited with what we're allowed to invest in, but we do have 4 CDs out that are staggered to come due 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months, so that there's always cash flow, and we should see, you know, the interest next year will be interesting to see how all that plays out as the rates start to move.
do you have an estimate on
So,
the?
on what we took in or the effect? You know, off the top of my head, we did do that.
We can make that figure though.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't have it. We actually did do that analysis, but definitely much more than we would normally see.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our county representative isn't here. So we'll just go through see if anybody has any reports. Jimmy?
Nothing for tonight.
Ms. Gaddy? Mr. Levy?
I do. Board of Rec and Joint Fields, I participated in 2 meetings, and the number of topics addressed at the meetings, generally concerning the rec department and fields and things like that, of import to this. It was discussed at the meeting, it was presented by a township committee person, whether we should relax dog leash rules in some of our parks. That was actually covered in a December meeting, but it wasn't reported out by Mr. Tillotson, I don't think, so I'm not sure that he attended it. So I'll report out, the board decided that the dog leash rule should not be relaxed, and it's asked a number of reasons, mostly dealing with the likelihood that pen owners, both who live in Millburn and don't live in Millburn, and bring their pets from other towns, may not be able to be trusted to pick up after their dogs in certain designated areas. While a test time was discussed at that time, again, I was not part of this discussion, I'm reporting out what occurred based on minutes. It was decided that the dog leash, that the recommendation of the committee is that dog leash laws should not be relaxed. Of course, it's within the purview of the township committee to address that should it decide. Goals and objectives of the group were discussed prior to my joining the committee. Goals were announced, and it rated itself on its the extent to which it met the goals and scored pretty well. Some recreation type activities and numbers were discussed as well too. The recent trip to Shawnee Ski Mountain had its highest number of participants ever at 166 over 3 buses. High school intramural has its highest participation ever, but rec numbers in terms of basketball are down. I was asked to announce that camp registration is open. Please visit the website. Spring and summer activities are open for registration. Please visit the website. And batting cages have been gifted by the Millburn Short Hills Youth Baseball Association to the rec department. They should be installed and ready to go for this spring season. That concludes my report.
Ms. Lieberman?
2 committee reports. February 8th, I attended the Arboretum meeting, and I wanted to announce to everyone here that they will be holding their gala on Saturday evening, May 12th, from 6 to 10 p.m. at the Turtleback Zoo, adequately named the Zoobilee, so please think about attending. Ticket price has not yet been confirmed. I will report next month once they have decided exactly what the ticket price will be. Once again, it's Saturday evening, May 12th, 6 to 10, Turtleback Zoo. Joint Fields met on February 12th at Giro. We are continuing to address the lack of sufficient fields in the township and continuing to explore all possible locations that could be secured for expansion. It was also mentioned they'll continue to use the turf blankets on the field, which will provide protection until the end of February. I'm sure many sports wanted to use the fields today, but they're unallowed, not allowed. Addressing the Washington School mud field, quote unquote, which will be planted after school ends in June. And to confirm the replacement of safety netting at the high school Dr. Nigel Field, and future projects will include a fundraise to look at potentially building a new turf field. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Ms. Rosenberg?
I attended the DMDA board meeting on February 13th, and they will be presenting shortly, so I don't have much to report, other than I was questioned by some people whether they have the ability to present their budget because it wasn't voted on at the meeting last week, and I know that I was at the meeting in January where it was voted on, so nothing has been changed from the meeting, so they will be presenting their budget, so their budget is properly presented tonight. There was a PTOC meeting, Safe Routes to School, on February 12th. Alex, you might want to give more about that, but we are applying for a grant to try to get some money. And believe it or not, we're actually asking for money for the fancy bridge when you come into town, which might be a nice project to get some money for. Something that happened before the prior meeting, but I didn't get the report, but a resident met with me, asked to meet with me and talk about residency, and from a town perspective, whether we would consider an ordinance making sure that people who live in our town, who go to school in our town, actually live in our town, and whether, not just from the school board enforcement of it, but whether we as a town committee would be more willing to enforce that. So if anybody is interested in discussing that more, you want to pursue that, that's something that, somebody brought up to me, that there are people who do violate, or not to violate, but that if there were an ordinance that gave some sort of disincentive to renting to people who don't go to our schools, that maybe from our town perspective, we have more of an ability to help with that.
There's about 10 constitutional violations in that kind of ordinance. The school board is charged with, and it has enforcement authorities that it retains to look for persons who do not live in the town but still attend the school. And they, on average, back when I was on the school board, located about 3 a year. I understand that there were more, and those students are charged tuition. A number of years ago, it was roughly $13,000 a year. I don't know what it is now. I haven't been involved in some years. And so that's a function of the school board to do, not for us to do, in terms of discerning whether those who attend schools are actually residents of town.
No, it wasn't necessarily that we were going to discern, but that if we had any kind of ordinance, not, fining landlords or fining people who are encouraging this.
For what? Finding them for what? Because the only landlords in theory that could be fined are the ones who rent to families who live in town and therefore send their kids to school. So what would we be fining them?
Right. Wouldn't there be a landlord out of town then?
Right, that would be a landlord, say in Maplewood, that someone should be targeting, if anyone.
No.
Well, I mean, we can talk and figure out whether it's something we want to ask our attorney to look at, but I tend to agree with Sam that it's an issue for the school board to address.
Township Committee did take this up 4 or 5 years ago, and for reasons, I think, practical reasons, putting aside the legal, it was felt that there would be such a imposition on almost having detectives have to go around and search through apartments and find out who's living there and were they properly attending schools or somehow illegal attending schools, and recognizing that the Board of Ed had a process already in place to address these situations. The Township Committee elected not to get involved. It doesn't mean you couldn't change your mind, but I thought you'd want to have that background.
Well, it was brought up to me, so, okay.
Yeah, the school board does do that. It retains investigators who essentially camp out, or at least they did, camp out in front of targeted quasi-residents to learn how often those residents were they living there 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And the school board would receive often anonymous reports from students and parents and others in town saying, X person doesn't live here, but X person's attending the schools, or X person only lives here 1 day a week or 2 days a week, and you should investigate. And the school board did.
Is there also, if too many students are coming from one address, is that a flaggable?
No,
That's not.
no, it's only a C of O issue.
So
If any.
if multiple students with possibly different last names are coming from the same address, is that something that gets flagged by the Board of Ed?
That's something that gets reported to the Board of Ed numerous times.
Okay.
But absent C of O issues, there's nothing that the Board of Ed did with some footnotes. There were some workouts on tuitions. Again, when the Board of Ed finds a truant, it sends a letter to the person and or the guardians or parents, sometimes they're guardians, and charges them. Sometimes they paid, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes there were enforcement mechanisms, sometimes there weren't.
So then, talking about a C of O issue, if it's a one-bedroom apartment, but there's 12 people, is that something, isn't that the town, not the school board, that would be making some sort of regulation on that?
I assume the fire department might be interested in that, but in terms of the impact upon the schools, I don't think it's within our jurisdiction to attend to that. I think it would only be if we learned that there were C of O issues where the fire department was concerned that too many families or too many persons. And over the years, there were lots of reports of it. We're living in apartments, part-time, full-time, sometimes not. I mean, there were reports of persons commuting from Manhattan to go to our schools. And we caught, the school board caught someone doing that one time. And submitted tuition bills. But this is all really within the purview of the school board.
No other reports?
Ms. Figler.
Okay, so the Environmental Commission met, and we again discussed the as-built survey ordinance that is still being finalized and will be introduced at the next township committee meeting. So as was explained to me through the engineering, as of now, only new construction requires an as-built survey. And the purpose of this is to require the purpose of presenting a new as-built survey is to require all other types of construction, such as additions, adding a new level, and partial knockdowns, as of now, do not require this. And this would be to verify that the structure has indeed been built to the specifications as per their permits. As-built surveys will be required to close out these permits and to get their CO issued by the building department.
I don't think that's
Yes, so
correct.
here's what the engineers and the building inspector told me. As of now, they're all in favor of this ordinance.
Right, but the ordinance that we reviewed is only for new construction.
And I thought it was the opposite. It was a little unclear, that's why we're not presenting it yet.
Okay.
Martha and Jerry and Christine, they said they would like to have this on the, they said that there's already a law that new construction has an as-built survey.
But it's not the as-built that's at issue with that ordinance. What it is, and I don't have it with me, but I don't think it was with respect to so much as getting, it had to do with measuring the roofs and making sure.
That the foundations were all,
But the as-built is after the fact versus getting an engineer or an architect certification. I think that's what that.
so here's the disconnect. As far as the building department, they believe this already exists for brand new construction, but it does not exist for additions, adding a level, or these partial knockdowns that are becoming a problem. So
Okay, but that was never presented to us.
that's what I thought they were talking about. That's what, no? Okay, so this is why it's still being worked on, but this should possibly be talked about for this other type of construction, because this is a loophole that is becoming a problem in our neighborhoods now.
Okay.
So I did speak to Alex about this, and this is something, I don't know if you'd work on this, the planning department, or we would have an ordinance.
So it would be, I mean, if that's something that the building and engineering wants,
Yes.
then that would be coming out of us, not the planning board.
Okay, so this is something
This
we
would be
can
something that.
start a conversation about.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so conversation will be started. The next thing is the energy aggregation is on schedule with Maplewood acting as the lead agent. The RFP to select the consultant has gone out, and the responses are due back tomorrow. As of now, there are 6 towns along with Millburn that have signed on. The consultant will be selected by March 20th, and he'll be authorized to explore energy companies to be the providers. The rubric will be compiled that will detail the specifications, green versus brown energy, and the costs. This aggregation will not happen if there's not a cost savings to all the towns. The other thing is we had a guest speaker, Karen Blumenfeld from GAS, and this was the same presentation she gave to the PTO about the health dangers of vaping, as well as the detrimental environmental effects of these products. And she wanted us to know that vaping is widespread in our schools and the middle schools. And her contact information, if anybody wants to get hold of her, is kblumenfeld@njgas.org.
Where did you speak?
She came to the Environmental Commission, but she also gave a report to Bay Schools, the whole PTO. So vaping is dangerous for your health, and it's also dangerous to the environment from the products that are left over. And I will leave this with the town clerk for all her information packet.
Which communities are part of the energy aggregation?
I do have that. Maplewood, South Orange, Verona, Glenridge, Millburn, and Montclair. And there are still others who are continuing to consider participation, but have not adopted resolutions as we have.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, just a few reports to piggyback on what Committeewoman Rosenberg was mentioning with regards to the PTOC. I did go to the meeting on February 12th. We discussed a lot of items concerning the schools and the safety around the schools, but of particular interest was the application of a grant, which my understanding under Safe Routes to Schools is better done as a joint effort between the schools and the municipality. And that is why the project that would be sort of considered not only by the township committee, but also by the Board of Ed would be the pedestrian bridge over Short Hills Road. And certainly a resolution to that effect would be put before you as the township committee to consider endeavoring upon. So,
When would we submit that?
well, the 6th would be, I would like to have the resolution to you on the 6th, so that we can get started. Jesse Woolman from our office will be helping with the representative from the school to work on it.
So a resolution should be before us on the 6th.
To support that,
Right.
the application. Also, I was asked by Committeewoman Eglo to just give a brief report. She had asked that we look into the idea of live streaming. We do have some of those quotes that I will share with the committee toward the end of the week. So, in the meantime, if you have any questions and concerns, please let us know. But we do have some quotes for that. Also, I was asked at the last township committee meeting with regard to complete streets numbers. I just wanted to let everyone know that that has been posted on the website for people to view under the Complete Streets Initiative.
So they're on the website, but you don't want to share them now?
I'm sure I'll be asked for.
Oh, okay.
So, I'll answer specific questions with regard to
Oh,
Okay, Mr. Falcon, anything?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. I just have a couple of things, and not really. Committee reports. I reported I believe at the last meeting, that I was on a conference call with Senator Menendez. I received in my mail at some point since then a letter from James Dalton, the Director of Civil Works for the Department of the Army, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, advising that, apologizing for taking so long to write back to me, but essentially saying that the Army Corps of Engineers has decided to conduct a detailed dam analysis for complete dam replacement of the Orange Reservoir. If the analysis is supported by the non-federal sponsor, the New Jersey DEP, execution of a detailed dam analysis does not guarantee that an alternative incorporating the Orange Reservoir will be selected as a recommended plan. May further validate economic and life safety concerns, but regardless, they're going to continue to work with the sponsor to determine if the alternatives are available to provide a flood risk management solution for the areas of Cranford and Robinson's Branch along the Rahway River. And that's what we asked them to do, is to conduct a dam analysis. So that's a very positive response, and I have written to Senator Menendez to thank him for his support, and have copied Senator Booker and Representatives Lance and Payne, who are representatives within the Rahway River Basin area who are impacted by this. On another note, someone reached out to us for me to sign on to the Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which I did. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but, yes, it's sort of a no-brainer to sign on to objecting to illegal guns. And that's all I've got. All right. Are there any comments from the committee with respect to the consent agenda items? Comments or questions? No? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the, oh, you're right, I apologize. Anyone in the public who has any questions or comments on the resolutions on the consent agenda? And those resolutions are bills to authorize refunding of tax payments, to authorize the transfer of funds, approve raffle licenses, support and authorize Sustainable New Jersey grant application, authorize TRC Environmental Corporation to perform continued remediation services to address environmental contamination at the former Exxon station located on Essex and Main Streets, and to authorize the transition of LSRP services, and that's at parking lot 1. Any comments, questions? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the resolutions listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a vote?
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Edward?
Yes.
Mayor Barsney?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the DMDA 2018 budget introduction. Members of the DMDA are present to make a presentation to the committee and the public with respect to their proposed budget for 2018. At this time, they'll make their presentation. The committee will ask any questions that they have. Public discussion will occur when it is introduced. Public discussion during the presentation will occur when it is introduced. The next meeting? On the 20th of March. If people have public comments, if anyone in the public has any comments to make tonight with respect to this, they're welcome to do it during the public comment section of the meeting. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 18067, which introduces, approves, and sets the public hearing date of March 20th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. at Millburn Town Hall for the DMDA's 2018 budget?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a vote, please?
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Edward?
Yes.
Mayor Barsney?
Yes. May I have the presentation?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everyone?
Great.
DJ Priori, President, 2018 of the Downtown Millburn Association. We're here to present, as Mayor Burstein just said, we're here to present our proposed budget for 2018. Everyone should have packets that we provided. In the packets, not only will there be the slides that we're going to present right here, but other information that I'm going to go over throughout the presentation, and a few other items that were requested by certain committee members.
The first slide is our projected expenses for this year. We broke them up into categories: special events, visual improvements, marketing, administrative costs, and operating costs. As you can see, the two largest portions, and those numbers are dollars, the two largest portions are for special events and for marketing. Obviously, from hearing from a lot of the merchants and also the committee, those were two areas that were asked for us to focus on. The next one is just the breaking down of percentage, just to reiterate the focus that we want to, and the direction that we want to go in 2018, which is special events and marketing. And obviously marketing being the largest, or one of the largest portions. Just in another way of showing a chart, as you can see over between the years of 2016 and 2018, we've spent our money relatively the same. We've basically gotten the same amount of money each year, and we spend the same amount of money each year. There's no question as the years go on, and we have great ideas. We want to grow this budget. We obviously want to grow funding for all the events, and at the end of the day, we want to help the merchants. Just we did a quick budget comparison from 2012 to our projected budget of 2018. And at the time, I wasn't a part of the organization, nor was some of the committee members, board members. But back then, there was a large discrepancy in money that was spent for administrative and not so much in marketing, whereas in today's budget that we're presenting is not the case. We want to focus on the marketing of the downtown area. We had a presentation last week for our board meeting, which some of the members right in front of me were present. So I just wanted to reiterate a couple things that we talked about then. Millburn Live was an initiative that we put together this year in the month of June. It was very successful. Our goal this year is to extend that even longer, possibly later. The farmers market, which has been a staple in our town, is something that we feel very strongly about, so much so that there's already been a subcommittee that has already met from our last meeting, which was only a week ago, to improve it, potentially change the date, change the time. It's obviously something that we're all open to. Whatever's going to be best for our merchants and our town is what we're looking to do. Shop Small, which is a November event, it's obviously a country-wide initiative. It's very important to me. I believe it's gotten better every single year. This year, we added a new component, which was the Shop Hop, which was essentially a tour of stores in the downtown area that wanted to participate. It was received very well. We did surveys post-event, not only with the merchants, but with the, the guests, if you call them. They were very happy with the event. They all said that, hey, there was a majority of people saying, hey, there were stores that we didn't even know existed that we found out and we're going to frequent more often. And there was even a member, Harry, who got a $600 sale. Mr. IQ, I'm sure you guys are very familiar with Harry Roth. He got a $600 sale that day because of the Shop Hop, because someone walked into his store. Would love to improve on that and have a more specialized events, maybe a restaurant one or a clothing one or a furniture design event. Parklets, we've had opportunities to have parklet parties. There was other groups that wanted to get involved, which is fantastic. It's just going to highlight our downtown and how it looks. Window dressing contest. We got great exposure from Dress by Lori by having this contest. She had won, not only through the marketing company that we had involved with us. We got Fios. Verizon Fios came down, highlighted Millburn, and just recently, Industry Magazine called me saying that They wanted to feature Millburn in the magazine, saying it's a great destination. We want to put you in the magazine. Additionally, Design New Jersey. I don't know if anyone was aware, Sam, over at Sam Signatures, he is featured on the cover of one of the magazines, and they sent us a letter saying they want to feature Millburn in their magazine. Snowflake Parade can speak for itself. It's a staple in the town. It brings a lot of people down, and at the end of the day, it's an amazing event for just community building and enjoyment for everyone that comes. Like I said, the MDA creates a sense of community, and we want to continue that. I think it'd be tough to picture this town without all those events. And we want to continue to not only build on them, but add more great things to it. I just want to make mention to the fact that we reached out to Jeff Bueller from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, and we asked him to review our budget, our audit, our executive director contract, and our salary and our goals for 2018. And you have this in your packet. It's a bunch of emails. You can read along with me. I just want to quickly read what he responded with. And he said he received the DMDA organizational budget, and I can tell you that this is a fairly typical compared with other DMC budgets in the state. As you know, we're in the process of completing a 2018 Improvement District Census. Once the data is in hand, we'll be able to share more exact analysis of your DMDA budget versus other programs. That said, given the scale of your district and the normal staffing numbers, this uses and sources mirror what we see in every other community, other communities. And then finally, just want to say that Jackie had asked for profit and loss and balance sheet, and that is also in your packets as well as the breakdown of the budget. Questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, question. Slide 3, your expenses comparison 2016 to 2018.
Let me grab that.
Is that in this one?
Yes.
Downtown Millburn budget presentation, slide 3. You commented that the marketing is the most important, I think, right now, task of, one of the most important tasks of DMDA, but as I read this, the marketing part of the budget has decreased, or projected to decrease for 2018. You look at that graph.
Yes.
So,
Well,
operating's up, and special events and visual improvements are about even, and admin is down, so marketing, it seems to me, should, relative to the other.
I'm sure Julian wants to answer.
So I can answer the question. So 2 things are coming off the books. We did a mobile optimized website that we paid for over the last 2 years, and we also did the Close By app that we paid for over the course of 2 years, which were big ticket items. Those things are coming off the books, and we are trying to manage things for marketing more in-house, which is why you're seeing a slight decrease, because we had those 2 big ticket items come off the books.
So the marketing will continue or increase, but the cost of doing it,
Yes.
you're more prudent in how you handle it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Wait, Julian, can you just say what the 2 were? One was the app.
The app, and we did a mobile optimized website that we paid for over the course of 2016 and 2017. That's now been paid for in full.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Do we have any of the listing of the special events for the $61,000 that you're gonna execute in 2018, other than the ones that are previously mentioned, the Snowflake Parade, Farmers Market, the Shop Small?
If you look at the budget, it breaks it down. It's on, should be page 2. Right, page 2 of the budget, that, right? No, I'm sorry, in this, page 2. Yes. It has the breakdown.
Right. Yeah, so the to be,
There's one that we're gonna probably add, you know, when we get funding, we'll add another one.
so the event staff is in that special events?
That's Nettie. The 20, you're referring to the 25.6?
Yes.
That's Nettie.
So why is that not part of administrative costs, and why is that in the budget for special events?
So we kind of allocated each individual person's salary towards their area of focus, and a major focus for Nettie within the office is doing the events and the logistical planning behind the events, so we broke it out that way in the budget.
But I would think that that would be under administrative or operating, not special events. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, you
I
can
mean,
categorize.
I would think special events is money allocated for the events, not allocated for administrative, in-house administrative costs associated with an event.
In the past, we brought in outside event planners because there was no full-time staff or even very limited part-time staff. So they did outsource for event planners in a lot of different areas. So that is kind of why it had a line item in the special events category. But moving forward, it can be adjusted. And, you know, that being said, we have mentioned in our goals presentation that the goal is to have Millburn Lives be self-sustaining, so we want to seek sponsorships in the amount of $15,000 for this known event to open up dollars to add even more than just the $3,000 allocated here for an additional event. And events are our primary focus as well as marketing for this year.
What I would like to see, I've asked before, I'd like to see a calendar of events that kind of goes through by months so people can know, anticipate.
Well, I think that's,
Townspeople can.
it's definitely gonna happen.
I think that would be something that everyone could benefit from. As I mentioned to you, the tie-in with the schools, so that everybody has this calendar that is comprehensive and kind of takes you through from January to December.
Mhm. I would agree with you, but we gotta get there.
All right, following up on Ms. Lieberberg's question. So if you don't really have administrative expenses other than you have a part-time administrative assistant, so the rest of
That's the farmer's market manager.
so that's the farmer's market manager, but that doesn't fall under the cost of the farmer's market.
That's what I was looking at.
So I'm just trying to figure out if you have, I think you have to allocate either everybody to their events, but you also have some administration that has to be done. And so some portion of your salary, if you're, let's say, Jillian, you're going 50% of your time is going to marketing, 25% of your time is going to something else, and 25% of your time is going to something else, however it may be. And that's how you guys decide to allocate salaries to the different, and you can do it either way. But I think you have to be somewhat consistent. So, you know, if we've got the farmer's market person, her salary shouldn't show as an administrative assistant if all she's doing
Well,
is farmer's
that's
market.
That's not all,
Yeah.
that's not all. I do
No.
sponsorships, I do the parade too, so.
Okay, so, but do you understand my point?
Yes, and, you know, our previous administrations have requested it in one way, and we have a new administration who's requesting to see it in a different way, and we'll be happy
We'll
to provide
accommodate.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also have another question. What is the board administration cost of $2,500?
Where are you reading?
We're looking.
I'm reading on the intro approval and on the resolution. Page 2. General operating expenses, rent, insurance, office supplies, IT support, board administration.
So in the past, that dollar amount was just for miscellaneous items, if we gave out awards and different things, I can get the breakdown, like the detailed report out for books and send it to you, because I don't know the breakdown, you know, for that number offhand. But I can email it to you tomorrow.
And as you've indicated, marketing staff of 79,000, that's the director.
That's the director.
Right, so, right, to Cheryl's point, I think, I agree, it would be more comprehensive if we had salaries for the total DMDA staff as a line item, and then you can break it down as allocations.
Any other questions?
Can we ask for that, to have that, can we have that information prior to the March 20th meeting?
Sure, you would have to
Thank
have
you.
it. Yeah.
Have you come to a decision about the bookkeeping and the salary, the pay company?
The paychecks
The
versus.
paychecks versus the bookkeeper, like that's being split now.
Yes, we have gotten quotes, and we're waiting on one more from Paychecks to get the quote to make a decision.
But it's not something you're gonna have a bookkeeper do. You don't have a
No,
bookkeeper anymore?
no.
We're phasing her out and me in this month, so we're looking to do that. As far as the books, but payroll was different, and I've been working with Cassie on that. We received one final bid from her guy, and that I just spoke to DJ about today, and so I told him I was back on by Thursday this week.
So you have 3 people receiving salaries.
3 people receiving paychecks, correct?
So the payroll services of $2,600 will also come off the,
They will be cut in half.
We were asked at the board meeting on the budget just to put the actual for 2017.
So that
That's-
should be the P&L.
It's on the profit and loss.
Right, is just for ease of our
Yeah,
overview.
yeah,
if you
she's gonna
could
provide, right,
just
she's gonna put it,
stick that extra column in, thank you.
not a problem. Thank you.
Anything else?
One question.
Go ahead.
So we discussed a little bit of a gray area, discussed it with the other 2 members. You're the board president, but you also do work for the board. So this is a little bit of a gray area. How is that going to be reconciled? So we know that everything is above board and you're going out for quotes. Like I know you went for quotes with the gentleman for the web service now.
Right.
So just something like, is there any kind of conflict of interest that you have?
I don't have a conflict of interest, I have no issue. They certainly can use anyone that they want to use. I don't think they're going to get a better price anywhere else, based on my feeling for the town, so, you know. But we certainly can get quotes. And to my knowledge, I don't know if there's any other entertainment companies in the town, which is kind of part of what we're trying to do, is promote small businesses within the town.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, obviously that plays into it, but,
no pun intended.
right, no pun intended, but, you know, for the couple bucks at the end of the day, I don't know where where you're gonna see better now.
So it's, out in the open.
Absolutely, there's no hiding.
And where are we with the information from Close By, the app, the data? Where are
They-
we, do we have any resolution with respect to
What
the people that
they
downloaded
have,
the?
what we're asking for, obviously, they wanna get paid, and we have every intention of doing so once the budget gets approved. And we'll get all that information, emails, everything about all the stores, and he's ready to provide it to us.
And how many are on that list, do we know?
I don't have the number, but I think it's everyone that was definitely on the app plus, that's download the app plus, so.
Jillian, do you have any idea what the numbers look like for that?
So there was 1,000 downloads to the app, and I don't know if each download associated an email address. It was optional, it wasn't necessary. So that would be one number, and then I think he was saying about 4,000 average website views. So again, a significant number that will make a nice addition to our existing email list.
Which is how many on the email list?
We have over 2,500.
One more question. Where are we with the property owner list?
Well, I think that during the Complete Streets, I think the township had done something in September, and then we updated it in November, and we're also in the process of updating it as we speak.
I'm just talking about the members of the property owners that are part of the DMDA.
I mean, in
alliance.
past, it's, it's always been first floor, that's been required, but obviously my goal is to improve that, because I want as accurate as numbers as possible, so that, that means getting second and even third floor, businesses, it's,
Property owners or businesses?
you're talking about businesses, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
No,
I'm
she said
talking about-
property.
She said property owners.
Well, property owners is, my understanding, there's 118 property owners in the DMDA. And plus whatever.
Oh,
their-
I thought you meant like getting the businesses.
Yes, the first floor businesses as well as the second and the other
We're
sections.
working on that as we speak.
Okay.
But you asked
You
for
kept
property
saying
owners.
property
Yeah,
owners.
but I think what she's
that's what she
suggesting
meant.
is a way to identify through the property owners, the
Correct.
businesses
Correct.
that they
Thank
have
you.
on their first and second floors.
And third floor.
And third floor, correct.
Okay.
So that there's up-to-date information.
So Alex, maybe you just want to explain to the public, what you explained to me today, how the money is assessed and how the pool of money is decided by business owners, and there's some, like Emerald Garden is gone, so they're no longer giving in, so just so people understand how this whole
Well,
thing works.
there's a footprint of the DMDA and Kate can jump in, but the footprint of the DMDA that is assessed, and that assessment is based on the percentage of residential to commercial, and the roll is set in between. What's gonna happen now is, the next step is that a roll is set, and issuing, notices are issued to the property owners so that they know exactly what their assessment would be in the city.
I have a question. Has there been any talk of increasing the footprint?
That hasn't been spoken about recently. That would be fantastic to get to that point. I think a lot of things would have to happen before we can cross that bridge, but certainly.
And I'm meaning Upper Millburn Avenue and Short Hill.
I know what you meant.
And I don't even know if it's ever been considered the Short Hills Mall, or if that's completely separate, but
That's not downtown.
It's not downtown.
All right. Any other questions?
One clarification, if I can. If I understand correctly, you were gonna supply some supplementary information to this information.
Correct.
Which will take the administrative costs out of the program and put it back in the administrative items so that the committee, when voting on this budget, can see.
Correct.
How that's allocated.
Although you can, if you want, within that, do sort of subcategories, percentages of the anticipated time for whatever events or pieces of the budget that are applicable. Okay?
All set?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Reedy, an ordinance introduction.
Ordinance number 2495-18. This is an ordinance for a bond anticipation note in the amount of $310,000, which will go to purchasing self-contained breathing apparatus equipment for use of the fire department, often referred to as scuba, but not necessary in this case for underwater use, just general use for fire department and fighting fires and other services it provides. $310,000 is in bond anticipation note because it's an anticipatory payment. The expectation is that we will receive sometime later $231,000 from FEMA, making the amount after applying a $23,100 capital improvement fund amount of $55,900 by my math, the overall cost to the township for this self-contained breathing apparatus equipment for use by the fire department. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have an ordinance published in accordance with law in the item, and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, March 20, 2018.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberher?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Dalrymple?
Yes.
Mayor Barsney?
Yes. Thank you. Does any committee member have an item of new business to discuss? Anything? No? Okay. Old business, we have two items on the agenda of old business. One is flexible parking, so I'll just start off by saying, did it go on?
No, it is ready. I sent it to everybody.
Okay. We're going to be sending out a survey to pretty much everybody, right? The world of Millburn Short Hills, with some options with respect to flexible parking. Everybody's asked to identify themselves on the survey, and the reason being, so there's one survey per person. Yes, per household, per person, per adult? Per adult. So, and then Ms. Eglo, I think also want to discuss anything, or?
Well, the survey didn't come to my email until I was already here, so I didn't have a chance to review it. I know we had some questions about it.
It did incorporate the comments and concerns of various committee members. Again, I think you'll find that it's in accordance with most of those comments.
And if it's not, we redo it.
Well, it'll be longer and longer until it comes out, so we just want to make sure that
So the
that
goal-
people have the opportunity to respond.
The goal of the survey is to provide the township committee, when deciding what to do about flexible parking, to give us some information as to what the township is concerned with or interested in doing, and the merchants who are going to be affected by it. So we're looking forward to, I think it's pretty much a 2-week window to get it back to us. So, and I think you can do it online.
It's all online.
And it's online, but I believe that they're gonna actually go around downtown and hand it out.
We are going to go speak to those merchants directly adjacent to the flexible parking, not the entire complex.
All right? Okay. Anything else on flexible parking?
Well, I think it's residents, visitors, merchants, store owners, so, and landlords. So I think people that, not residents, as well as people that visited the town, our neighboring communities, I think they should all be weighing in as well.
Well, I don't think we're gonna get our neighboring communities. I think we'll get our township people, we'll get our residents, we'll get our merchants, we'll get our property owners, but I don't think we'll be able to get outside. I think this is a decision for the people of Millburn to make.
Another question, would it be not feasible to put some high school kids out there on a Saturday and get some of our visitors from out of town who are commenting and who we want them?
Who we want back, who we want to bring back.
Well, I think that's really hard to do, because you'll get some people on a day that you won't get others on a day. So I think we should limit it to Millburn Township people. And you're gonna get some out-of-towners, because some of our merchants are out-of-towners. So you'll get property owners, you'll get merchants, you'll get shopkeepers, you'll get everyone who spends a fair amount of time in this township.
You're not surveying the people that are not here. That's the issue. You're missing the whole point.
Okay. This is amongst us. Well, he knows that.
I think if we can get a larger body of shoppers, the Springfields, the Summits, the South Orange, Maplewood, and we have to, if we're doing the survey and they want to participate, and we can cast a wider net that'll just give us more information. I think information is power, and I don't think we have anything to lose. Once we have the data, we can decide what to do with it. accordingly, but I think if in fact we can get the data and use the data, I think it helps us make better informed decisions.
Fair enough. I think that we should limit it, but whatever you guys want to do.
How would you send it to
Well, word of mouth.
neighboring communities, and which neighboring communities, and
And who's now?
who's paying for that, and how's it being?
It's an online survey. You can just request your friends and family that they download the survey online through the Millburn website.
I know that, but who's requesting? You're requesting, I mean, how are you soliciting this out-of-town survey participation?
Just
Friends and family.
Well, there's nothing precluding any of us from, anyone here from doing that.
Precisely. So the wider, the wider the net, the more data we have, and we can decide what to do with it at a later date. We can include it, not include it, but at least we'll have some data that will reflect our neighboring communities, because what I've heard from numerous shopkeepers is that the out-of-town business was dramatically reduced post Complete Streets.
Well, then if you're hearing that from the merchants, wouldn't they then be able
Well, some of the
to-
merchants are no longer
Can I
here.
finish speaking?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
My point is that if you're hearing it from merchants, then the merchants would be able to reflect that in their surveys.
Well, I think that's reflective of the merchants that are still here, but some of the merchants that are no longer here, if we can get that kind of data, I think it would be helpful.
Mayor, is the survey, you said you have to identify yourself, address as well?
Yes.
Correct.
So then if we do have a wider net, we can decide how to segregate and interpret the data too. So I agree that it can't hurt if people give us a survey, even if we don't end up taking their opinion, at least we get it.
As I said, whatever you guys want to do.
Would it be possible to leave hard copies at some of the restaurants? People come to the Millburn Diner on a Sunday morning, it's jam-packed, and it's not just Millburn people. I mean, would there be something we would want to put some hard copies out?
But there will be hard copies in town hall.
But that's not open Sunday morning for breakfast.
It's true, it's true. Although it might be a new model.
There you
How
go.
do you know restaurant owners want cards sitting in there?
Could ask them, the DMDA could ask them.
But there's nothing precluding you from soliciting participation in this.
Well, but as Committeewoman Rosenberg said, if you have to put your address on it, so are we saying that we will open this up to outside residents? They have to get their hands on it, though.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not speaking out of turn here, but it's a public survey. There's nothing to preclude them from doing. I think the other point is that the ideal situation is that people respond to this online, so that the results of that can be tabulated quickly and efficiently. The more and more hard copies you have out there, and the more and more that, then someone here will be tabulating it. And so you know, and that's not to say that shouldn't be done, and there are not going to be people that do that. But certainly, the more that you can have people fill it out online.
What's to prevent somebody from filling it out online and putting her Millburn address, 10 minutes later, using a Gmail or a different computer, putting a Springfield address, 20 minutes later, putting a Maplewood address, and what's to prevent any of that from
Or
happening?
their neighbor's address, neighbor's address.
Yeah.
Right, so this one vote, one person theory is not only unenforceable, but is likely to be abused.
It may be, but we still need the information, at least to the extent that, we'll get the information, then we'll decide what to do with it as,
But the information will be almost by definition inaccurate.
it may be.
I don't know how reliable it is.
I'm much more trusting than you are, people.
Well, if you're asking for not just an email address, but a street address, then you're going to be able to look at, you've got your property rolls that you can compare. If in fact,
What if I put down 134 Maple Street, Springfield, is someone going to be checking that? No. So,
No, that's,
well, we can look at that out-of-town data and decide what we're going to do with it if we have critical mass. If we don't have critical mass, we can decide not to include it.
Or decide what to do with it at
Or
that point.
what to decide what to do. But
If any.
Right, exactly. So what did we decide, people?
It's on the website, it's gonna have 2 weeks, so share that, people.
Do we
Share it.
As soon as it is ready for prime time, we'll be able to announce that the survey is.
Excuse me. All public comment is at the end of the
But are you
business
gonna
meeting.
vote on
Right
this
now,
now?
we're not voting. We're coming to a consensus as to what we're going to do. No, it's not, it's consensus. It's not a, you know, if we're putting it on the website, so if people tell their friends to say how horrible flexible parking is, and that's what they'll do, and they'll go on the website, and we'll take the information and do with it as we will. Okay. Proposed, are we done? So we'll go on the
May I
website.
say one thing, Mayor? There is a section, it says additional comments and questions.
Okay, there you go.
So you could answer that.
Okay. Proposed regulations for chickens on residential properties. I refer to Ms. Paul Eglow and Ms. Rosenberg for their recommendations. And just before we start, I really would appreciate it if people wouldn't shout out while we're having our business meeting. Y'all know better than that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so we've been working on this diligently, had input from our attorney and from some neighbors. We have an ordinance that is not 100% finished, but here are some of the major points. Start? Sure. Okay. No coop or chicken enclosure shall be greater than 10 feet by 10 feet. And we got this number from looking online, and it says, what size chicken coop do you need? They recommend square foot per hen 4. We, on the ordinance, will say no more than 4 hens. So that would give you 80 square feet, we're given 100 square feet. As far as the height, looking online also, most of these chicken coops look to be 4 feet high, which is right below what your backyard fence has to be is 6 feet high. So if you have a fence, your neighbors won't see it. So that was the parameters.
So, obviously, because there's an enclosure, one of the major things is no free roaming. So chickens have to stay in their enclosure at all times. That's very important, because most of the complaints that we've had from neighbors are that they're finding chickens on their yards. And some of the concerns about that are salmonella or anything like that. So we are trying to balance the desire of some people to jump on the bandwagon of, you know, country farm raising and, you know, and sustainable eggs, I don't even know the right words, but, you know, we're trying to honor our residents' desire to do this, but also their neighbors' concerns. So that's why it's very important. And from that perspective, we'll have a permitting process where the health department will have a permit fee and an inspection fee. And that also requires a survey and diagram depicting the placement and dimensions of the coop. So that's one of the things.
And it would be, coop or fence enclosure shall not be closer than 20 feet from any property line, including their own house. It cannot be closer to 20 feet to the person's home,
Property lines, right?
but also their home. Like you cannot have your
Home will be
chicken coop.
over the-
No, but it's not your own house. It can't be butted up against your house for sanitary reasons.
We also want to make sure that there's no rodents. Some other concerns were that it would attract predators to the neighborhood, whether foxes, things like that. So they have to make it and repair it. There was one chicken coop in the town that somebody sent me pictures of that was really made of cardboard boxes, and that wouldn't pass our test here. And obviously, no selling of eggs. We're not doing this so that people can have, you know, egg businesses. We're doing it so that they can, whether they're teaching their own kids, sustainability, but their own eggs. All feed, the chicken feed there's even requirements for that. It has to be in rat-proof containers and placed in a container and not scattered about. You know, there's things like that. We took a lot of time, I know it sounds a little interesting during, you know, that this is what we're putting our time in, but this is what people have asked, and so we took the time. There will also be violations. Our health code officer can issue fines or initiate prosecution should they be, you know, in violation. And another neighbor could initiate prosecution as well by calling the health officer for a violation. For example, if your neighbor's chicken is free roaming, there you go. There's some penalties, could be up to $500. So hopefully people that are gonna raise chickens are gonna realize that this is not something, this is something we're gonna take seriously, and that they're gonna abide by the rules.
Right, so there will take some neighborhood enforcement, you know, you're gonna have to be watching. We have no idea how many people actually are raising chickens. It could be 5, it could be 10. There's no way for us to know because there is no permitting rules. And clearly, if somebody is a neighbor who has chickens, they will be found out if they don't have a permit, and they will have to go through the process. If somebody has their chickens, they've gone through the process, and they have too many fines, it can be revoked. But we are going to try a fair approach, and if people can't abide by the rules, then like anything else, it will be denied.
Can I ask a couple of questions? So there's no grandfathering, right?
No, if you have chickens, you have to go through the whole process.
So if you have 5 chickens and our limit is 4, you have to get rid of the chicken?
Yes. Get rid of it. You can't slaughter it.
Give it to the cooker? No?
No, you can't
We
slaughter
do
it.
not allow slaughtering in the township.
Just look at them live asking. Got it. Give it to a neighbor.
Like just bacon, you have to give it to your neighbor.
Yeah, cook it like a lobster. All right. How do you determine 4 chickens?
That's how come 4.
How come 4?
Well, 4 seem to be the average a family would need number of chickens. From what we looked at about, what, 25 towns? And
4 is the maximum.
4 is the maximum, and that seemed to be the average sustainable that a family would need to supply eggs. Because a chicken should lay an egg every day. 1 chicken, 1 egg.
And, go ahead.
So could you just repeat the size of the coop? Because, so if it's 4 chickens, just, if the size of the coop,
10 by 10?
10 by 10, so if it's 4 chickens, you increase the size?
The enclosure is 10 by 10. The coop itself, they're not that big. You can look online. The coop itself is a small little house. And that house, 4 chickens are very comfortable in together because they're like pack animals. They stay together. They will travel in their enclosure together and they will all go home to roost together at night.
Okay, so the size of the enclosure is 10 by 10 for 4 chickens?
Yes.
So it doesn't, whether you have 1 chicken or 4 chicken, the size of the enclosure is the same?
Correct.
Well, that's the maximum. You can have a smaller one if you just
I
have 1
understand.
chicken.
Yeah.
But the enclosures are where they get to run around outside, not the coop itself.
Correct.
Okay.
And the coop is a little house that's raised up. The coop is not on the ground.
And the size of the enclosure is
No, coop or the enclosure?
the enclosure, not the coop?
Like the little house that they go in?
No, that's the coop, right?
That's the coop.
Okay, so the enclosure on the,
The fenced-in ground area. It cannot cover more than 10 feet by 10 feet on the ground.
right, so 10 feet by 10 feet if it's 1 chicken or 4 chickens?
Correct.
Correct.
That's a healthy amount of space for them to roam around in their own little area.
Yes, Mr. Levy.
I always have legal questions.
No llamas.
No. It says under the violations part that the township has the right to commence litigation in a court of competent jurisdiction. That suggests that in order for the enforcement officer to enforce the revocation of a permit, maybe taking the chickens, the township has to bring an action to cause that to happen, which is an extra step, because normally if you have a license revoked, then you lose the right to use the object that the license granted. So here you're requiring the township to go into court and frankly get in order of specific performance or an injunction or something like that. I don't know if that was contemplated in this ordinance right.
You're talking about C, violation C?
C.
Yes.
The township shall have the right to commence litigation in a court of competent jurisdiction.
So
I'm going
what's
to
the-
defer to Kit over that. I don't think we were meant to
Yeah.
take chickens. I think it was more that we,
Well, I think that you wanted to, because if there are enough violations, which is the second part of my question, because it doesn't say what that is, it's ambiguous. You can have the permit revoked. So the question is, how many violations causes a revocation? And is there an appeal right of that revocation? And you have in here that you have to go into court, which I would suggest that you don't require, because you want the office, you want
without
the
without
authorities
the extra step.
to do that. And then on top of all that, the question is whether or not an individual, a neighbor, has a private right of action under this ordinance. Right now, she or he doesn't. By default, you don't have a private right of action unless one is given. I don't know if you gave that any thought.
Well, it does say, actually, if you look at bid,
On
the
the what?
person residing within the township may initiate prosecution, so they are given a private right of action.
The private right of action to get the authorities involved, not a private right of action to sue under the ordinance. That's a different
Correct.
private right of action. So, for instance, as I understood the explanation, one of the reasons that the chickens can't roam,
Health reasons, sanitary.
health reasons, salmonella, other things like that. But if a neighbor nonetheless feels compelled to sue because of a violation of the statute and there's some health, detrimental health impact upon that neighbor, she or he could sue in the normal course, but she or he may want the benefit of having a private right of action under this ordinance, which is the type of thing that statute writers usually decide. I don't know if anyone was given that. If you gave it that kind of thought, or intentionally elected not to have a private right of action, in addition to the other reasons I've raised.
I did not give it that type of thought.
And of all the towns we looked at, which was a fixed staff, that is not in any of them.
Yeah, they don't have me on their council.
Well, I actually have a legal question to follow up with his, because you referred to, you have a repeat violation in 5, in A5. That's the only time that it's, there's no reference again of repeat violation, so that may be go to part of your question. You know, you have a repeat violation of once in 5 years, so what? It doesn't, what does that mean?
Where's
What's
the
the impact of that? So repeat violation is A in definitions, it's 5, little b.
Sorry, Cheryl, where is this?
Definitions, page 2,
Here.
top of page 2, right before it says
Violation
permit,
by person previously found.
but it's not referenced again anywhere in the ordinance.
I think what the mayor's saying is, how is it, when do you lose your permit?
Right.
There has to be a statutory basis in which that happens.
And I have another question too before I forget this, and that's my age. Do they have to be in the coop at night?
Yes. And
That's
what
not
we-
in here.
Oh, okay, because what we have found from a few people we've spoken to, the chickens do go back at night.
Well, we also want them covered, so maybe if they make noise, it'll be less noise.
Okay.
Right, I think I can answer a couple of these things. I think the point about how many, before you get your permit revoked, is a good one, you want to define that. The reservation of the right of the township to commence litigation is a common provision in the police power, and as always in zoning violations. You have your local administrative ability to enforce, but the township could also, and even simultaneously, commence an action in Chancery Division, for example, to enjoin an activity.
But it doesn't need an ordinance to say that. I mean, it either has the right or doesn't have the right. The enabling ordinance, the enabling language of that doesn't, frankly, has no meaning. You either have the right or you don't have the right.
So,
You don't, I mean, this might be a signal to the community that you can do it, and it might be some kind of effective communication and thing like that, but it doesn't advance any interest of the township.
well, I think it strengthens the ordinance to the extent that should a question arise as to how the municipality came to commence an action in Chancery at the time that its administrative agents were going after the property owner, that it had reserved to itself that right in its ordinance.
But why would the township even need to do that if it's going, if there's an enforcement mechanism where you effectively seize the chickens? it would be incumbent upon the the chicken owner to go to court and try to get its injunction. Why do we have to do that? I'm trying to save us this step of having to do that.
So in other words.
I would argue that you could, if I'm a chicken owner and you came to seize my chickens for an alleged violation, I would argue that you can't do it unless you've got an injunction against it under this section.
It doesn't provide for seizing of chickens.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
Well, assuming that that's what we did, because we talked about
But
it.
we,
Revoke the
but
permit.
maybe that's what we should do rather than,
There
we'll
are,
certainly add that.
there are three permitting enforcement authorities here, the health officer, the code enforcement officer, and the animal control. The code enforcement officer is here because it turns out that these facilities for the keeping of chickens can be quite elaborate in having electrical service and some kind of plumbing service. And therefore, the code enforcement officer will want to be able to determine whether or not what has been constructed there or maybe subsequently changed is in compliance with the construction code. The animal control officer is here because this is an amendment to your animal control ordinance. And the health officer on account of health reasons. But I don't anticipate anyone coming to seize a chicken or come to chop down the coop or anything. You lose your permit. Now you got to
So
get rid
what
of
then?
these.
If there's no right of seizure, you just say, all right, take my permit, I'm still keeping my chickens.
No, then you get to operating one of these facilities without a permit, and the officer would go down to the municipal court and see, have you fined, and fined repeatedly.
Yeah, but they can issue fines, but you're still not removing the chickens, which is what the neighbor's gonna want.
Well, you
The
would-
neighbor's
don't
turning you
remove
in
the
because
chickens
there's a
after they
violation
get-
of the ordinance, and so you want the chickens out of there. The neighbor who's is subjected to some kind of health impact will demand that the chickens be removed, okay? If you go to the neighbor and say, well, we're finding this guy, they say that's good, but it doesn't help me in any way, I want the chickens out of there. And you have no enforcement mechanism here.
You're suggesting we should have an enforcement mechanism that allows the township to remove chickens?
Like a dog catcher?
I'm saying that if you're an affected neighbor and there's no way to remove the hazard that's presented to you because you're reporting the violations for a reason, because you find them to be hazardous to you. And then I might, if I'm that neighbor, send a letter to the health officer saying that I'm holding the township responsible for any health impacts that salmonella, pick the one, I don't know what they all are, for any that may affect me, because the township is refusing to enforce its ordinance by removing the chickens that are causing the hazard. And I think that would be a pretty good lawsuit, because it would be de facto violation of the ordinance because the person received a fine. So there's no enforcement mechanism.
Well, there is in C. If you, let's suppose,
Well, then, that's my point, then you have to go get an injunction. I'm saying you
Fine
don't need to do that.
continually and collects notwithstanding daily fines of several $100s to keep keeping the chickens, then under C, you can go to court and secure an injunction for the removal of the chicken coop and the chickens.
Yeah, but my point is you don't need to do that. You can weave this into the statute,
To the ordinance?
to the ordinance.
And what is it that we would weave in?
Right of seizure,
Oh, boy.
under whatever conditions that those charged with writing this ordinance come up with.
I think what you were saying, we can't assume anything, but if someone gets enough fines, it becomes prohibitive to keep your chickens, and you have to go to King's and buy a dozen eggs.
Assuming the person's going to pay the fine.
Do these fines become a lien on the property at some point?
You had other fines working down.
Okay.
They can be held in
If you mow,
contempt of
well,
court.
if you mow somebody's lawn, he doesn't do it, that becomes a lien on the property.
Chicken ordinance?
I don't know, I'm asking.
If you have a fine to the municipal court and you don't pay it, you could be held in contempt of court and go to jail. And get a bench warrant.
Yeah, I have to,
And they can, they could also be seizure of property as well.
Correct. But do we
We
really
don't
want
have
to
that
seize
here.
chickens?
I bring it up because if I'm the affected neighbor on this, I would want some kind of seizure rather than having to go into court and spend $25,000 on an injunction to protect my rights.
I think admittedly, working with the members of the committee, a right to seize chickens never came up, and it doesn't appear in any of the community's ordinances we looked at. The idea was to keep it as administratively simple as we could, that there would be a permit issued, and for violation, we have to quantify that of the ordinance. The permit could be revoked, or, and this B section is meant to allow the neighbor to bring an action in the municipal court against the defendant property owner. And then C, if all else fails, to go into court and seek an injunction. But I'll run the seizure of chickens by the health officer, code enforcement, and the animal control officer to see if that's something.
They're both gonna say no.
If anybody wants to
They don't want to be in the
chickens.
business of seizing chickens, and I don't blame
I
them.
wouldn't do it.
May I ask Jimmy something, who did a lot of our research? When you were researching getting all these ordinances from other towns, I don't know if you had the opportunity to ask any town officials, are they having issues with their chickens? Are people constantly violating? Are there problems?
That's not any, didn't come up in any conversations that, in my research, but that's not something we can go back and look into.
Maybe. I mean, we might be thinking of problems that are never gonna happen here, you know? We're gonna give them the rules, we're gonna pay for their permits.
But I do think we have to set a standard for how many violations.
And what about a time period that they have to remedy the, if they get a violation, do they have a week to kind of clean it up, or is there?
Judge normally takes care of that.
Okay, but you wouldn't want to put that in the statute, the ordinance?
Also, that's generally left to the discretion of the code enforcement officer who goes out there and says.
Oh, and that, so he.
You have 10 days to remedy this before you actually receive the summons.
Okay.
So they'll get a notice before they'll get a summons.
Correct. Generally, unless it's egregious enough. So.
Is that the way it's handled for in other municipalities for chickens? I'm just asking.
In all the documents we have, it was really just laying out the dimensions and the rules. We
Not
have
the
to,
punitive aspect.
maybe we could ask some of these towns if they've been having a lot of problems.
Just one more question.
Absolutely.
Since the chickens can't roam, if we had an audience full of Millburn chicken owners, would they complain that, based on your research, that that's unfair, A, to chickens, or B, to their rights as chicken owners, because it's restricting the natural freedom of a chicken, which other detrimental? I mean, I don't know.
Egg production?
Yeah, I don't know whether chickens need to roam or not need to roam.
We did visit a chicken owner in town who said that the eggs taste better and are a different color when the chickens roam. And that owner did believe roaming was better. But in our town, that's not what we're going to be permitting. So if somebody really wants to raise chickens and really needs free roaming chickens, they're gonna have to have another property in a town that has more space or more ability to roam. But that's just beyond what we're willing to accept here.
Because we had some chicken owners present to us before, at least two of them, as I recall. The daughters presented that the chickens were not for eggs, they were pets. And one parent said, and the daughter confirmed, that they treat their chickens as normally everyone else would have a dog or a cat or something. And so they weren't using the chickens for those reasons, it was just a normal pet. And so if you present them with this ordinance and say, well, you keep the pet, but you can't let it roam anywhere,
They might choose to not have chickens.
they may want to be heard on that.
Well, I emailed her, I don't believe she's in the audience tonight, so.
When we have the hearing on the ordinance, should it be presented for public hearing, and we hear that, we'll listen to it, but at this point, I'm not inclined to allow, this is not for chickens as pets. This is more for chickens as
Breakfast.
Breakfast food. As creating eggs. Okay, I think we've spent enough time on this tonight.
Yeah, you're done?
We're done.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about the proposed chicken ordinance? When invited to speak, please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and address. Speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever a member of the public or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please give a copy to Kristen Gotti, our clerk, or email it to her at cgotti@millburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes, and we have a clock for that purpose. It's also requested that speakers not repeat what others have said. Does any member of the public have any comment? So please come up to the podium.
Good evening. Cassandra Fishkin, Casita Mexican, 321 Millburn Avenue. I have a couple questions and a couple points I would like to bring to the attention of the TC as you go ahead and consider the budget that was presented to you by the DMDA. I am an executive committee member of the DMDA, so I did have a chance to vote on this budget. I was the only person who voted no. First of all, I just want to point out to you that it's dated July 2017. We as committee members haven't seen the actual for 2017 yet. Excuse me, I have a sore throat tonight. So we don't know what the actual was, and it's been requested several times. There's apparently a bookkeeper on staff, yet this report wasn't easily able to be obtained in spite of the number of requests that have been made. Going along with that, in the 2018 proposed budget, you'll see a new event on the first page, which has no money allocated to it. You'll see that Girls' Night Out was an event that was formerly run on the second page to the tune of about $20,000 on average. They claim that during 2017, that money was spent instead on the Close By app, which we now know is a total loss, actually. The contract hasn't fully been paid yet, so there's still monies that are unaccounted for and due there. There were very, very low number of downloads on that app, and as well, the company that owns the app hasn't yet stated firmly that they're going to give up the data because the contract hasn't been paid. And I have a copy of a letter that states that they're not interested in investing resources into doing so, given that they weren't paid on the contract, and apparently the company was also sold or something to that effect. A few other items to point out here on this projected budget. So that just goes to show that on the third page of the 2018 projected budget, there is no real savings on that $34,000 Close By app because we got nothing out of it. It was expended to be an investment, so that's a complete loss. Also, as far as the numbers that fall below there, the bookkeeper salary, there's not a true savings there because we're paying our executive director apparently nearly double of what was being earned prior. And that is, of course, without a job description, without goals having been established prior to 2018, and several other very questionable things. We don't know if there's a proper candidate search. We don't know how qualified the executive director is. We don't have a proven record of success under the administration of the proposed executive director. It wasn't bid out. The contract itself was signed 2 months apart, the executive director having signed it 2 months prior to the board members who apparently approved the project. The salary is doubled for the executive director and includes an entire month of paid time off. A few other things to note within the budget is that there's an increased legal expenditure for $14,000. They propose to pay this supposed attorney $335 per hour for his legal services, which I'm sure as many of you know as attorneys, and given that this is for a municipal contract, is way out of market. It should be more so in the range of $150 to $180 an hour, so that's just a huge questionable item. Also in the report of your audit, if you don't mind me just going over the time for a minute or two here, it's actually the 11th page. These pages aren't numbered, so including the cover, if you count to the 11th page, you'll see that under the heading of Notes to the Financial Statements, paragraph 6, there's a comparative schedule of tax rate information. And just on its face, you can see that given the tax rate being the same fixed every year, and the assessed valuation having a fluctuating number, we surprisingly result in an almost fixed amount of the special district tax levy. So again, this was an auditing, apparently a certified auditor who did this, and doesn't give us exact information here on this audit. So this again is something worth questioning, I think. I would really like to see the TC take a really, really fine-tooth comb in looking at this budget. On this audit, the 2015 and 2016, I'm not sure if you have a copy of it, I hope you do. Okay. Okay, maybe we'll find a way to get you a copy of this so you can take a look at the past couple of years. So we don't have an audit on 2017. The board members of the DMDA haven't yet seen an actual for 2017. We know there are monies outstanding. It appears that they've been operating at a loss for 2017 then. A few other things going along with that. There's no proof of the ads or marketing that's been provided for 2017. The stated goals that were presented to us were fundamental at best. This group, this organization should already have job descriptions. It should already have a year's worth of goals laid out in advance of receiving their budget so that you're clear on what their aims are. Mr. Levy, like you pointed out, that there's a huge discrepancy in where the salaries are being allocated to. It makes it seem as though more money is being spent on events and marketing, when that's not the case because they're absorbing the cost of the salary into those line items. So we should be looking at this a lot more carefully and reallocating expenses where they belong. So that this is a true reflection of how the money is spent by the group and not what makes it look good so that the budget can get passed. I really feel that that's what's being done here. Also, I just want to inform you that this budget was presented to the executive committee about 10 minutes before it was voted on. There was no true opportunity for questioning this budget, for really looking through it carefully, for understanding it very well, and for us to have a chance to perhaps edit it or make these changes in advance of it being presented to you. I felt that as an executive committee member, it was more or less shoved down my throat. I think that's all that I have to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hope you'll consider it all.
Hi, I'm Nancy Skellen from Nancy and David Fine Jewels, and I'm also a resident in the community as well. I am also very disturbed by this presentation that DJ made with the budget. How can they present a 2018 budget when you're working with final numbers of 2016 and nothing finalized in the spreadsheet for 2017 other than a profit and loss statement, which I understand you have in your packets? That should have been on the spreadsheet that Jody highlighted, and why it wasn't, I don't understand. I'd like to know the reason why from them, so that, because when we ask them in emails, nothing gets addressed. I have an email from Jillian that she sent me on February 14th. Good afternoon. This was sent to several people. Let me see who it was here. Scott Heller and DJ. Good afternoon. I hope this email finds you both well. I'm looking forward to working with you on the business listing subcommittee, which I volunteered for and Scott Heller volunteered for. I wanted to see if you would like to get together and discuss a plan of action. I'm flexible any day next week but Monday. Looking forward to hearing back from you. I replied the same day, okay, when Jillian, you must be joking. Is the DMDA even funded to move forward? What is going on here? Are you writing your own checks? Who signs the payroll checks? I think a lot of questions are still unanswered. We have a plan of action and we're hopefully going to move forward with all of you really taking a very close look at what is being presented to you today and on March 20th when it moves forward. It's absolutely unbelievable as a business owner that you would even approve or consider approving a budget that you don't even have any history on for 2017 as the final presentation for what the numbers are. It's just outrageous.
I think we are going to get that, though.
Well, why wasn't it done this evening? I mean, it's just absolutely incompetent that it wasn't presented. I also, even though I have a very fond relationship with DJ, I think Diane brought a very valid point that it's a blatant conflict of interest, and DJ should recuse himself, even though he is a town merchant, of even soliciting business. And even though he might be the least expensive, is that really what the DMDA is looking for? You really want the most effective person. I'm sure he's very competent and wonderful DJ, or literally, I don't know if that's, no pun intended, but you know, that's not the case. But the big, huge distraction is the misappropriation of salaries that they're trying to bury in the budget.
We've addressed that as well.
And this is something that needs to be highlighted, and I want to be on the record for. Also, the example of Shop Small was a disaster. $1,500 budget, they claim it wasn't, it was $2,500. DJ was highlighting a $600 sale for Harry on the entire town. More examples should be given. Big deal is this app that was absolutely ineffective. And I had a conversation with DJ over this, that who cares about the old emails? Probably half of them are obsolete anyway, and they had a budget for it. Where's the money that was appropriated for that Close By app in 2016 or 17? Where is that money? And why are they looking to 2018 money to pay for that in order to get the data back? That's also a big red flag. Last but not least, how can a director be the bookkeeper? And who's signing the checks for this organization? And legal fees. I mean, the marketing expense that Sam brought up, we're taking $14,000 out of the budget to put into legal fees? That defeats the whole purpose also, I thought, of the main goal, is to really push for the marketing of the organization. So, you know, are there double signatures? There's so many questions that just go unanswered. This group is not supervised, and it really needs to have somebody, which I'm thrilled that Jody has taken a very active role in participating in overlooking this organization, but the money needs to be appropriated other than administration fees, because if you look at the spreadsheet, it's not the way it appears. It's not the reality, and that really needs a close look at what needs to be addressed here. And I hope you pay attention to that.
Thank you.
Hi, Marilyn Reesbeck, 91 Buckingham Terrace. I don't want to beat a dead horse about the DMDA, but I just have a few comments that weren't already said. One is that a month ago at the January 16th meeting, I spoke for probably 2 of my 3 minutes about the employment contract for the administrator for the group. And I would like to know if anybody's taking a closer look at that and whether that contract can be voided because I think there's some improprieties there. I also, in looking at this budget, I see that what looks like a $79,000 salary, which is Jillian's salary, is listed as marketing staff. And aside from the fact that I don't think a search was done for an executive director, I also don't think a search was done for marketing staff. And I'd like to know what Jillian's background is and experience in marketing that we would pay her $79,000 for marketing. So that's it on the DMDA, other than the fact that as a resident of this town, and I'm not a member of the DMDA, but here I attended one of their meetings, and I come to most of these meetings, and I hear, I've been hearing a lot about the DMDA and this budget and just seeing what was presented for the 2018 budget. I have to say, as a business person, that I think that there's something really funky going on here, and I'm really glad Jody's involved because this needs minutia attention. I mean, this really needs to be looked at carefully. Okay, the other thing I wanted to bring up was the survey that you're talking about doing. I have 34 years in information technology, a lot of experience in analyzing data and working with surveys and everything. And I think Sam has a very valid point about the validity of the data, but I'm assuming that this is not going to be the sole input to your decision making about complete streets or the flex parking. So I think gathering the data with the understanding that there may be some discrepancies in the data, allowing anybody to respond to it, but capturing maybe an email address or an address, home address or whatever, and maybe assuming that there's going to be a percentage of the data that you're getting that may not be 100% accurate, that you can still use that as input to your decision-making process. Again, as long as it's not the sole input into your decision-making. So I support the survey. I would like to be able to send the URL to other people. Most of us have friends and relatives in neighboring communities. I have a sister in Maplewood who's constantly haranguing me about what's going on in Millburn. I would like her to be able to have access to fill out the survey. So I do hope you will consider that input as well. And if anybody would like to talk to me about technology and data and how to look at it and all that other stuff, I'm happy to offer my input. Thank you.
Richard Footer, 333 Millburn Avenue. Just for informational purposes, I would like to see the budget presented the way it's been done so that you can compare apples to apples. Bar graphs are very nice. They can run alongside of that or on a separate page, but there's no way to compare. And I would like to see the 2017 budget line item by line item and compare that to the proposed budget. Because there's no way to compare what is taking place. That's strictly for informational purposes. As far as the contract goes, I don't know who drafted that contract. The only criticism I could make, that I would make of that, is I've never seen, I don't know if an attorney drafted that, but I've never seen an attorney draft a contract on behalf of an organization which didn't even put in the basic comment that, or the provision that there's a performance review. I've never seen anything like that. And I'm not saying that that is an issue, but I think it's an issue with the way the contract has been drafted. As far as the survey goes, changing topic, I think Alex made mention that you were going to go to the businesses along flex parking. I would suggest going from Spring Street up to Lackawanna or Holmes, because what happens out that window doesn't stop at the corner at the end of the flex parking. And I think what you might hear is comments as of the effect that's taken place beyond. And I would weight that in your decision. I'm not saying that you have to go all the way down Main Street to Palumbo's or, you know, but I think it would be a benefit, because what's happening here isn't stopping here. And you really need to hear that from some of the people up the block.
But I'm not questioning that, and I'm not questioning that those other people need to be heard. But in particular, those individuals that will be impacted by any decisions by the committee to remove or to modify or anything up in the flexible parking would be those individuals adjacent to it. We've also got to think about the amount of time that we have to apply to it and go door to door on that. And so I think that's under consideration as well.
Well, I hear you, but if something happens here, like more construction, it's going to happen there. Just like when they did the bridge on Millburn Avenue right next to our building, everybody felt it. People couldn't get to there, and people couldn't get past there.
Take it under consideration for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sarit Katz, 11 Fairfield Drive. It's February 20th, 9:30. I just wanted to note this was made, we should all remember this time and this moment, because I'm agreeing with Sam Levy.
I retract what I said.
The survey is probably of very little value. I just did a major project involving a survey. It has to be, I discussed this with Jody previously. It has to be done appropriately, prepared properly. It's a scientific process. The questions have to be done in a certain way. They can't be general. Who drafted the questions? How are they drafted? This can be done and should be done. You know, if you're giving, leaving some hard copies downtown, for example, or questioning people who happen to be downtown, you are neglecting all the people who no longer come to downtown because they are so aggravated by what's happened. And to just focus on only the flex parking is also a mistake, because the whole thing in its entirety is problematic. And so, you know, my concern is that you're going to get a survey, it's going to be truly valueless, and it'll be used as an excuse. It can be interpreted in any which way you want to do any which thing you want. If you're going to do a survey, it should be comprehensive, it should be scientific, has to be done appropriately. I have a company, not my own company, but I just did a project. I interviewed 3 surveying companies, I'd be happy to talk to you and put you in touch with the one that I chose, and I can give you others. Harris Polling, I mean, these, there are research companies that do this. If you want to get information from neighbors outside, you can go to neighboring zip codes. It's all done scientifically. It can be done online. It's really important to do it right. Otherwise, it's truly meaningless. Truly, truly meaningless. And there are other elements beyond the flex parking that need to be addressed. And the thing is, even if you decide, okay, great, let's take up flex parking. You're going to do a construction project. It's going to cause problems throughout the town. But then you'd say, okay, but we'll leave the bump outs. Then at some point you're going to decide you got to take the bump outs out because they're problematic. Then you're going to have to do another construction project. And you're going to start and stop and start and stop. And I think it would be more efficient, more cost-effective, and wiser to do a complete, comprehensive analysis of the downtown, of the problems, and how to fix it. Get a plan with a township planner or hire a planning company, really examine what's going on downtown, and have stakeholder input, residents, taxpayers, landlords, merchants, etc. And do it right, because I think what happened was we had an ill-planned and ill-executed project downtown. I'm not finished. And we should have a well-planned and well-executed solution to the problems. I looked at the numbers on the website and I totaled them up, and we're looking so far at paid to date on complete streets of $5,853,344.42. That's about $6 million so far for what we've got downtown. And that's only what's paid to date. I would ask you, Alex, how much is outstanding? How much hasn't been paid yet? What are the bills outstanding? And what are the bills that haven't even come in yet for the work that's been done?
Okay, well, I'll look into exactly what they are, but there are some for, there's one outstanding bill for arterial, and that's about it at this point. Anything else will be brought before the committee for consideration.
But so there is one bill that hasn't been paid yet, but there are some other bills that haven't come in yet?
No.
All right, but so we're looking at about $6 million or more, and that's it's hard to imagine that that's worth $6 million.
Thank you, Ms. Kemp.
Yeah, my time is up, but
Thank you.
no, I'm not finished.
Yeah, you are.
No,
There's
I'm
other
not,
people who want to
ma'am.
speak. No.
Ma'am.
We have, everyone else.
Ma'am, I just need to say this. This is very important. These comments that people who are in this town, who live here and work here, make are for your edification, so you can make better decisions. If you want a survey to get people's input, there is nothing wrong with listening to people now. And we are in a exchange right now, and you could... No, ma'am. That's fine. It's public comment time, and I'm going to comment. The points that I made are valuable and important for you to listen to. And so at any rate, the point that is very, very important on this is that for the town, for the benefit of the town, it is important to get a true sense of what people want, and then to go about a fix in a comprehensive and well thought out manner.
You said that.
Yes, I did. I did. I wanted to say more things, but you have unnerved me, ma'am. So congratulations. If it comes back to me, I'll be back.
Jim Lyle, 209 Sagamore Road in Millburn. I'm a longtime resident, founding member of the MBA. I was board member for many years, and I was involved and still involved in various committees and activities over the years. Over the years, The MDA has promoted many activities beneficial to the town and has been involved, and I have been involved in numerous programs to improve the visual appearance of the downtown, such as Riverwalk and Design Review. Many towns similar to Millburn have special improvement districts. The decision to approve the DMDA budget should not be based on personalities or groups with opposing visions, but in having an organization structured to promote and strengthen the downtown. The DMDA board should give direction to the organization. The board should be diverse with representation from groups with different viewpoints and various stakeholders. Many of the problems that we have heard about in the last few years can be attributed to the outdated bylaws that need updating. DMDA has started this work last year, and the DMDA is looking to accomplish this revisions in the next few months. I feel that once the bylaws are updated, the organization will run more smoothly, elections will be more efficient, and the board will become more representative. The results will be a much improved DMDA, better able to promote downtown Millburn.
Thank you.
So why wasn't this done in 2017?
No, go ahead.
Carrie Heller, 56 Byron Road. Hard to imagine where to begin, but Sarit and Cassie very well said, Marley as well. Sort of ambushed here tonight for survey, which is something that for a year has been floating around in the public domain, a professional survey, not a survey conducted by the Township Committee, for the Township Committee, for you guys to choose. It was the same mistake that Ian and Ted made. Rather than bringing it down, dumbing it down, and still having the power to vote yes or no, to give it to a professional or an ad hoc committee to get a professional, and to bring it back up for you guys to either approve or not approve. You're going to make the exact same mistake. This is not what goes on in other towns throughout the state. Bad thing. If anybody's interested in that survey, it's out there. It still needs to be vetted. It's not perfect, but it was meant to be given out at supermarkets, at the train stations, to be done over a day or two so you don't get repeat people doing it. And basically, it can be done for a very inexpensive amount. Rather than doing it online and putting something on the town website and people not knowing that it's there, including the complete street accounting, which we'll get to, and I don't think should come out of my time. I think it should come out of Alex's time and the mayor's time. We've been asked that question before. With reference to the DMDA, most has been said. That 2017 income and expense, I saw that 3 weeks ago. I had a very nice meeting with Jillian and DJ. It has been not given to you until apparently tonight. It has not been, Jody, you've seen it. It's been out there. It should have been presented to the public well in advance of tonight. You can't make any 2018 budget until you review your 2017 expenses. There's been a number of individual items that have been pointed out to all of you by other people. I won't beat that horse because it's going to come up between now and your second reading. But it's not the proper way. And to that extent, if you look at the Special Improvement District that was created in 92, 93, and you look at the bylaws of the MDA, both revised, forget what Jim Wiles referencing, it's not in the process of being done, of being rewritten. It needs to be adhered to, both the town Special Improvement District legislation. We've spoken with the guy down in DCA as well. What was represented here tonight was just a general comment, a review of the budget that, yeah, it's not income and expense, and they have no idea what's in the budget and how the money's being spent. If I may go to, you promised both the last meeting and the meeting before, not to put it on the website, which all of us had to go on our phones to
You would
go.
like me to read it, Carrie?
We'd like you to give a full accounting of that and any unbilled. We know Flanagan has been around town spoken to, that there's still an unpaid amount in dispute or with them. Arterial, I've seen, Jason left, I saw $1,231,000 back last October on a town accounting spreadsheet of money that had been both spent and to be paid. So you have a $900,000 in today's accounting on the town website. I'd like the reconciliation in full, complete transparency by the town to give out a spreadsheet. What you put on the website today is not a statement of my business, anyone else here running a business of income and expense, or the amount of money that's been spent, accounts payable, amounts in dispute. We don't really know whether it's $6 million or $8 million too, or whether we're going to use that $3.4 million that was authorized and not spent. We still don't know. So the question is, what has both been spent? You put that onto the website. What can we continue or expect to spend that has either been not billed, to be billed, to be incurred? What's in dispute?
Well, there's the mention of the one invoice from Arterial. There is also going to be, again, what will come in front of the Township Committee for approval would be anything in terms of Bowman's additional expenses related to the extension of the contract and the project.
The Wells Fargo is reconciled with Flanagan. It's in that number. It's done.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
That's a good thing to hear because that's something that we've all
But there are still unnegotiated change orders and things that may need to come before this Township Committee.
All right. A lot of people are on vacation, as we all know. You can see it by the snow on Saturday, Sunday. So a lot of us are getting emails and texts, through sitting here, people wanting to know whether it be Alyssa Sutton, Richard Wasserman, among others. We just want, and if we have it in some form, we're in support of spending money the right way, whether it's to remove, whether it's going to be the survey, whatever it may be, but it's not been presented in a form for us, the taxpayers, residents, business owners. We'd like it in a proper form, and if you haven't seen, and I'm guessing many of you may not, it got put up on the town website at 4:42, as best as I could tell today, or I got an email from Alex, maybe it was beforehand. But if you haven't seen it, you should see it, and there should be an enormous number of questions from all of you as to, what is in there.
Well, and again, with regard to Arterial, you and I have spoken about that, and I've given you the accounting of that.
I have, you gave me a more recent, but I have from Jason back last October, $1,231,000. The contract is $1,112,000. There's $1,231,000 that has been allocated, paid and/or allocated to Arterial. You only had $985,000 on the town website today.
But that was again, I attempted that was inclusive prior to the phase one documentation and things that they were doing.
Your description in the website today does make reference to money in advance of phase one with reference to Arterial.
No.
That's my reading it, but that's...
So anyway, so Arterial, that number on the website, which is $898,030, was paid to Arterial thus far, is inclusive of phase one, bid specs, documentation, also work that was done with the Complete Streets ad hoc in 2007 for phase 2A, drawings, whatever, ad hoc meetings, things like that. That number is inclusive of all those things. The number that you're referencing, Carrie, unfortunately also included a prior agreement.
All the meetings here at Town Hall or out on the street, other meetings, drawings, presentations, all those sorts of things. Okay, understand. If we would just, as a follow-up to finish this, hopefully once and for all on the Arterial front. The Arterial contract was for $1,112,000 for all three phases. There is no phase 2A. We've all sat through here. It was to jump past phase 2 and up to. We now have $985,000 as expensed and spent already, with more, as Alex has referenced, to be perhaps invoiced, to go up by some amount, whatever that amount is. We're approaching that $1,112,000. We haven't done phase 2 or phase 3. What was expected within the contract, phase 1 was what we did do. The second portion of Arterial's contract was for phase 2 and 3. $1,112,000 for the entire phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. For all intents and purposes, the money is gone. And I think the Township Committee has an obligation, as Alex and with our clients, somebody needed to be watching this and say, hey, this is where we are. This is what we've spent. We need to take cognizance of this and to let the downtown know, Richard Footer and Cassie, those who are in the potential phase 2 or Essex Street coming around, that there is no more money. There is no effective Arterial contract that can be utilized to do phase 2, phase 3, whatever that may be. And again, I'm going to say it, we all support complete streets. I think all of us want something to be done. But there's no money there for the design, and you can't take it out of the complete streets budget. You have to augment or have a completely new contract for Arterial. So it goes... or if you're, no, or someone else, there's no, I understand. There's no funding in place for drawings. And where we're gonna go, and even with the survey, if we're gonna do something with flex parking, again, just point something out, if we're gonna go back to the original curb line, just by example, I'm not endorsing anything. The new light poles are in the way. If you go back to the bollards, it's one thing. If you go back to somewhere else, it's somewhere else. If you go to the crosswalks, as everybody's referenced, we need to, and I think getting it out of your domain, at least in the model of the 1999, 2000 report, establish the ad hoc by yourselves, give it down, have the town planner, have Major, have whatever professionals involved in it, as alluded to before, and do it and give it down. You have a lot to do. You've got a lot of different things on your plate, but give it down, and eventually, by the way, 2 liaisons, of course, from the Township Committee, probably non-voting, which certainly should be on it, and whatever, 15 people, it will make what you're doing a lot easier, and it's not to put me on it or to put someone else on it, it's to help you, and that's what's done in other towns, and I don't want to take more of the time tonight. If someone's interested in that, I'd be happy to take you to South Orange, to Maplewood, to Livingston, to West Orange, to Bloomfield, to Montclair. That's Summit, how it's done in every other town, not what you're doing with conducting the survey from this level. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Anything else? No, something else.
Judy Rosenthal, 12 Marion, Millburn. First of all, I would like for you folks to invite Mr. DiVincenzo to speak to the Millburn residents about the county budget. I've been in touch with his office. Obviously, a citizen like me can't extend that invitation, but I would really like to have the opportunity to speak to him about the county expenditures. Millburn contributes proportionately per taxpayer more to the county budget, perhaps other than Livingston. And I think that we should have a say in how the money is being spent. My particular concern is the expenditure of monies in the reservation. The reservation is being paved over. Not only is it to be a waste of money, for example, why are we putting a giraffe in New Jersey that has to be housed in the wintertime? But the amount of paving that's going on negatively impacts Millburn. Every parking lot that Joey D puts in the reservation is less permeable surface to be absorbed, and the water all comes down to Millburn. We have flooding problems. Joey D's got to stop paving over the reservation with his pet projects. And I'd like the opportunity to do that, although I will tell you I'm going to tomorrow night's county budget meeting. As far as Millburn's budget, is the budget online for us to look at?
No, it hasn't been introduced formally through the resolution yet. This
Okay,
was just
then
sort of
once
letting it
it is, then it'll be online. Terrific, okay. The third thing I wanted to ask about is what's going on with Glen Avenue? When is that going to be done?
3 weeks, according to them. Every time you ask, it's 3 weeks. So 3 weeks.
I've never
is 3
asked
weeks.
before.
No, not us, not you, us.
Oh, okay.
No.
That's what they keep on saying?
Say it's 3 weeks, every time you ask.
The money team. All right. Number 4, what is breathing apparatus equipment?
It's the masks that they use and the tanks that they use when they go into a fire.
Oh, okay. All right.
To be able to breathe.
Got it. Okay. And then finally, I just want to thank you guys. I was so thoroughly entertained and encouraged by the chicken ordinance. I mean, everyone says that legislation is like sausage, and this was like watching sausage being made. There's pros and cons, and you guys did a terrific job of digging into this project. And I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I really loved watching you guys attack the problem. It's like democracy in action. It really was. I wish more people would come to these meetings because it really was great to see, and I thank you.
Hi, my name is Sherry Cronin. I'm the Executive Director of Downtown Westville Corporation. And I came tonight really to be a supplement to the information that Jeff Bueller at the Department of Community Affairs provided. I was a volunteer with my own organization. I joined a committee. I was rejected by our mayor at the time to become a board member, but eventually I became a board member. And I realized that I had no idea what it takes to run an organization unless I was sitting in the chair as the executive director. So when we lost our executive director, I said, you know what, I'll leave my big corporate job and I'll go help them out for a little while. Well, that was 16 years ago. And I gotta tell you, it's the hardest job that I've ever had. But what I want to try to emphasize with you, if I can, is that that I was here, I think, gosh, maybe 12 years ago, in the days when Harold was with you, in this very room talking about your downtown plan. And there are a lot of things to admire Millburn about. Yes, Westfield is envious of Millburn. You have the paper mill. You have a parking deck. We don't have that. We've long been wanting one. You have new streetscapes. I know, it was a hard process. You have parklets. We got one, we really screwed it up. And you have volunteers. You have dedicated volunteers who are trying to help you with all of the things that you're doing in town. You have great events, and I applaud that you're getting sponsors for covering some of the cost of your events. We don't do that in anything but our pizza run and a little bit on our Girls' Night Out. It's not easy to run the organization and solicit sponsors at the same time, but I want you to keep this in perspective, and this is something that I tell my own group. Our budget in downtown Westfield is $409,000. I don't know exactly what it's going to be for 2018. A lot of things are changing with the change in administration. But I think I saw on your presentation before that the municipal budget's like $32 million. Think about this. $32 million on the municipal side, $250,000, I think it is, for your DMDA. That's not very much money. Really, it's not very much money that you're setting aside purposely for the benefit of your downtown. And you have a great downtown. So some of the things that we have that are similar, we allocate a little bit of our salary for our website cost, but otherwise you can certainly look at our budget and find our salary numbers. Expansion of the district, something we've tried to do or talk about doing. There's a lot of emphasis by a lot of towns to do more events, more events, more events. It takes a lot of work to do a lot more events. I'm sorry. If you want to know about parking, we got lots of surveys in Westfield, and we'd be happy to share that with you. Thanks for the information on Close By. They've made a presentation to us, but we haven't committed yet. Or maybe we won't. And I encourage you to stay the course, continue to promote Millburn as a destination. I would also just remind you that there's ways and the way you manage your organization to have a delegation of authority. Also to have notes on your financials of any conflicts of interest or appearances of them. And that I think from sitting in this meeting tonight that perhaps there's some trust issues that perhaps need to be worked on. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
So I have another question, so I don't understand. Alex, there was, what's on the website for Complete Streets is just for Phase 1, but there was some stuff that was prior to Phase 1 as well?
No, what Carrie is referencing in the 1.2 and a previous sort of printout that was provided included a contract prior to the $1.1 million contract. So there's some confusion. That's all.
Right, but was there work done prior to what, was there work done and expenses incurred and the township paid for anything about Complete Streets that precedes what you have on the website?
Sure.
So,
This project started in 2014.
oh, so there is.
There are.
So where is that on the website?
That is not on the website.
Can we get those on the website too, so we can get a real understanding of what this project really is costing the town? So that those of us who live here and pay the taxes and are gonna have to pay for this can understand what we're really paying?
Well, and the reason that sort of this dollar amount is being pointed out is that this is allocated to the bond anticipation of the debt expense. The other stuff has already been.
Okay, but as a taxpayer, I'm on the hook one way or the other. And I want to know what this project is really costing us. And in a way that people can understand this, you know, of course, before we actually started phase one, they had to come and present and all of that stuff. We had to pay for that too. So can we get a real sense of what this really costs? And then, so can we get that up on the website as well? And then in addition, the other expenses that haven't yet been invoiced or whatever, the whole thing with the change orders and all that stuff, we're eventually going to have to pay that too.
Yeah, but I don't know, there's no sort of.
There's no ballpark? We don't have any idea what that's going to be?
Yeah, there's a number of claims that the contractor is making, the township is making, countering credits. That's a negotiation. Disputed costs will not show up yet.
So, but we approved them to go ahead and do the construction without having a real number of what it was going to cost.
No, I'm talking about we're at the end of the project, and the contractor has claims for things that he thinks he's entitled to be paid for that he wasn't paid for. And the township has credits and contends that a number of these items that are being advanced by the contractor are not legitimate. What I'm saying is there was a request before that disputed numbers be transparent, and I've just indicated that can't happen at the present time. There are negotiations underway, potentially mediation. That will be something that's kept aside for the present time.
Okay, so when that's available, can we get all of that in the same place on the website so that towns, anyone who's interested, whether they be merchants, landlords, residents, and taxpayers, can get a real sense of what this project costs, a true and complete sense of what this complete project costs. Thank you. Because it's going to end up it's clearly going to be over $6 million.
So this is the first, I haven't seen this on the website, but this is the first I'm hearing that we still have an outstanding balance for material.
You have one outstanding.
Is that amount available?
I can get that for you. I don't have it off the top of my head.
I would like that. But what is it for? What, just open?
Well, there is also, they have had to finish out the 100% punch list, which was their responsibility, so it includes some of that and some previous work, yeah.
We paid them to come on the street and do their punch list,
Yeah, they're responsible for it.
but we had to pay them to
Yeah.
stand on our street and see what work they haven't finished.
Not them, that
They're-
planning. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I just have one more question. I worked,
Identify yourself.
pardon? Marilyn Respect, 91 Whittingham Terrace. I was the IT manager for the surety department for a large insurance company for many years. And so I've worked with a lot of people about construction and everything. My understanding is that when you have a project, if there's a work order, you negotiate the work order up front, both parties, the contractor and whoever's hiring the contractor. So I'm a little puzzled about things being negotiated. If there was a work order, then it would seem to me there would have been a price. If there was no work order, then the contractor has no legitimate leg to stand on to be billing you for something that there was no work order for. So could you just explain why there's this controversy? That's it.
The contractor claims that he had to perform various tasks above and beyond what he should have been asked to do, and that he's entitled to be compensated for that.
So why didn't he ask for a work order at the time that work was requested?
We need a work order because we think it's within the existing contract. This is contested. If you put in contracts, and construction contracts in particular, you know at the end of the job, there is always a truing up between the contractor and the owner, whether it's a public owner or a private owner, and that's what we're in the process of doing. He has claims, we have claims.
I was confused about the discussion about work orders. So, done. Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maureen Marquetta, 214 Passaic Avenue. Thank you for all the nice things this lady has to say about Millburn. Short Hills, yeah. Millburn was a great town. Aside from the money and what's gone on and with its budgets and this and that, I'm a mom and I speak for many other moms who couldn't be here tonight because they were home taking care of their children, had to get them to bed, cook. I did all that, ran out. My husband's home. Here I am. There's a lot of discussion about this with people that live in Maplewood, South Orange, Livingston, Springfield. Our town is losing business. People do not want to come here. Kids in high school don't want to come to town. I'm bringing my kids to other towns and not Millburn anymore because it is always a traffic jam. There's nowhere to park. It's really ruined. Enjoying going to town, seeing people, shopping there, and I pray that this can be reversed and it doesn't, Section 2 or whatever you call it is going to happen up Millburn Avenue. I don't have the time to dedicate, but I am someone I am a homemaker, so I'm driving 5 kids around, 4 kids around, all over the place, and I have to deal with this. Coming here tonight, I have a video. Someone was parked all like this, and we're all backed up, and people are beeping. I mean, I live this every day. The bump outs and the flex parking is very bad, and I think that speed bumps and traffic lights would have been enough. I wish I had more time to come to these meetings. I appreciate everyone, but I'll try to come back with something prepared. I ran out tonight to go to the supermarket, and I was like, I have to go to that meeting. I have something to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Have a motion? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Is there a motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.